ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ Namaste, all of you. Welcome back to our studying Poojya Swamiji's book, The Value of Values, in which he teaches us about the 20 values that Lord Krishna has enlisted and emphasized as a stepping stone to gaining Atma Jnanam. The 20 values that Krishna teaches in verses 8 to 12 of chapter 13 of Shrimad Bhagawad Geetha, the chapter titled Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. So let us continue reading from Poojya Swamiji's book, The Value of Values. The next topic of discussion is ethical values, universal in content and relative in application. The universality of acceptable codes of conduct, that is, of general ethical standards, does not mean that these standards are absolute. Dharma and adharma are both relative. There are situations where what is considered ethical in one situation becomes unethical in another, depending on the context. That a standard may be relative does not mean that it is purely subjective. Although relative, sometimes in applicability, basic ethical standards have a universal content. There is a similarity in everyone's reaction to being hurt, cheated, lied, and to be bullied. Ethical standards are based on human consensus regarding what is the acceptable conduct. This consensus is not negated by the fact that the norms may be subject to interpretation in some situations. Even such a pronounced, clear value as non hurting to myself is modified by circumstance when I willingly submit to the surgeon's knife. Such a suspension of my value for non injury to myself is situational and does not affect my basic value for non injury to me or to its extension, that is, my general value for non hurting to all beings. Although my norms or values for behavior and attitudes themselves may not be subjective, my interpretation of these values is very likely to be subjective. My values are universal in content, but relative and situational in my application of them. For example, I'm likely to apply a value for truthfulness very consistently and absolutely to the words of others. To my own words, my application will be much less consistent and quite relative to the situation. In general practice, I will apply values more consistently and more absolutely to others than to myself. After all, the source of my values is found in the way in which I want others to treat me, which becomes my norm for good behavior. I find it easy to have others observe ethical standards. So I can be the beneficiary. It seems less easy for me to be consistent in the application of these standards to my own behavior. The next topic of discussion is ethical values cannot be dismissed. Can I safely dismiss a concern for values? No, I cannot escape from values. No one living in this world can escape relationships based upon his concern that he may not be hurt or disturbed. From this comes an accepted canon in the criminal code: do not be an informer. The example of a hitman reveals the inescapability of the impact of values. A veteran hitman, a merciless killer, does not want himself to be hit. He cannot escape the value for not hurting. He can only defy it, which creates conflicts even in a desensitized mind. Values cannot be dismissed, nor can they be defied with impunity. Failure to meet a value puts me in conflict with myself. When I perform an action that is a non value for me, I create a seed of guilt, which is all that is needed to produce sleeplessness, fear, and conflict. Even small lies create problems, like lying our age. It may seem a simple, unimportant thing, but small lies register inside as conflicts. Are values only mithya, apparent? Those who have had a little exposure to the teaching of Vedanta may believe that norm breaking behavior, that is, adharmic behavior, may be dismissed because it is only mithya, apparent, and not absolutely real. To such an argument, it can be said, if you can dismiss all dharmic acts also as mithya, apparent, then certainly you may dismiss bad acts as well. When you can see good and bad equally as mithya, values are not a problem for you. In the clear knowledge of what is real and what is apparent, your actions in the relative world cannot but be spontaneously good because you have nothing to gain, nothing to protect. It is that clear knowledge of the self which you are seeking. To be ready to discover that knowledge, your mind must be prepared with proper values. In a mind filled with conflicts, because values are dismissed or defied, knowledge will not take place when you listen to the teacher of Vedanta. Values and conflict is the next topic. No one wants a mind in conflict. No one. A mind in conflict is not a desirable mind. Once conflicts are there, problems of the mind are unavoidable. Self condemnation, regret, guilt, and a sense of failure are the products of a mental conflict. Conflicts come when I am unable to live up to a particular value which consciously or unconsciously I accept. Societal norms have a universal content, the influence of which I cannot really escape. My inherent desire to be comfortable and secure compels me to set standards for others' behavior, establishing a common sense ethical code which bounces back. Religion codifying society's ethical consensus into a rigid table of do's and don'ts make non-conformity on my part even more difficult. When I cannot live up to my value structure, I am in conflict and suffer guilt. The next topic is dropping out does not solve conflict. The dropout behavior of the hippie generation, prevalent during the 60s in the West, largely seems to have been an attempt to escape conflicts. During the Vietnam War period, the clash of unassimilated traditional values with situational personal values was particularly acute for young people. The response of many was an attempt to make no values their basic value. Traditional values were condemned, and a lifestyle based on individuality, self expression, and spontaneity was proclaimed in their stead. This did not work. True, values led to conflict, but as we saw before, values cannot simply be dropped. The universal content of values can be negated only if I have no concern about the other person treating me or how the other person treats me. If I want other people to behave in a certain manner, I am caught in a value system. How values cause conflict. When I have a value structure that I follow and expect others to follow in the same manner, my values cause me no conflict. However, when I want others to behave in a certain way, but for my own reasons, I am not able or willing to behave in that way, I have a problem. When I have a value and something interferes with my expression of that value, I am in conflict with myself. What interferes with my expression of my general values? Is the question. Individual situational values linked with some highly desired personal end can interfere with my expression of general values. When the general values have not become fully assimilated personal values for me. Let us take this discussion forward in the upcoming capsule. Hari Om.